Bryan?
What's going on, brother?
Um,
¿Qué onda, güey?
you you had some issues showing up. It's fine.
A little bit.
You're
they're,
here.
they're shutting down the border, bro.
Dude,
Yeah, it's so bad.
It's funny that you struggled to cross the border from the U.S. to here. It's pretty.
I had to. Yeah, I struggled more than my parents did crossing from one side to the other.
It's
a
fun.
full circle,
dude. Most of the weed here in Tijuana comes from San Diego, which is pretty wild to think about. Most of the people buying up houses here in Tijuana right now are
American.
Americans.
Oh yeah.
90% of all new housing, Americans are buying it. Why? The secret is out about Tijuana. Like all that stuff we do, all violent Tijuana, it's all propaganda. We want to keep people out. This is like Mexican Wakanda.
Oh, dude, you definitely wanted. Yes, that's what I mean. It's like you want people to be scared. I like that because I'm like, good. Now less people are going into Mexico.
All those lines outside the taquerias and stuff like that, man. A bunch of Americans there. We don't like that, so we're like, let's put some propaganda out there to keep them out. I guess.
Not only that, like people just know. Like when I was crossing over right now, this white guy comes up to me because I had to show my ID and everything. I'm like, I'm a freaking Americano, Chicano, and then trying to cross into Mexico, and they're giving me all this bullshit. And this white guy walks right past me. He's like, it's easier just to get a 6-month pass. He's telling me, a white guy's telling a Mexican how to get into Mexico better.
It's beautiful. I mean, I like it.
With his flip-flops and shit.
I
mean?
love it. Tijuana's getting gentrified as a motherfucker, which is great. I mean, but just...
Oh, dude, it is. Even the taxista, when I was on my way over here, he's like, hey, man, esta zona está cabrona. Cuidado. Like, he's telling me, and I'm like, don't worry. And then we pull up to the studio. It's like, oh, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, you're fine. It's a fine studio. So we're in Zona Norte, which is like, man, when I was active...
This was it.
Yeah, this is like District 9 shit. This is where the spaceship would land and have a bunch of those prongs living around here.
There's just dark clouds over it at all times. Like
this is basically one of the largest drug markets on the planet. Used to be, and still in a lot of ways is around here. Like a lot of the Americans will cross, either go to the red light district, or just come over here and buy drugs.
Oh yeah.
Just buy a little bit to have here, and then a little bit to put on your balls and cross back. That's
what I mean. It's like, dude, if it wasn't for Tijuana, a lot of white dudes would have been virgins for way longer.
Is this your first time here in Tijuana?
No, I've been to Tijuana before.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So before we go into Tijuana, we could leave that for the end of it, I guess.
No, we can.
So I've been following you for a while on social media.
Thanks, man. Same here.
Specifically because of your background, your specific background as a Latino, right?
Yeah.
I'm from Mexico. Yo soy de aquí.
Mexicano.
And I immigrated to the U.S. and I've been trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
A lot of the issues I've had, you would think, maybe some racist white men saying shit about me or something like that. But most of the shit I've gotten has been from the Latino community.
Oh, yeah.
The woke Latinx.
We're hard, yes.
We are, all of us are Aztec somehow, that
we're all indigenous all of a sudden.
All of a sudden we're indigenous. I'm going to tell you what you need to do to fix shit in Mexico, although I've never been to anything that isn't a tourist place.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. But I'm trying to be open and talk to everybody and kind of figure things out. So one thing I put a lot of attention to is just, comics. And specifically young ones that are from a generation that I'm working with. I have a lot of people that are my student base where I go and do classes. We're kind of the same generation, and they're always looking at me like, "Hey, dude, yeah, you're a weird Mexican." So why?
They just don't know.
Yeah, it's like, why am I weird? Like you speak like you're spoken English. Well, I'm a different type of migrant, I guess. I'm not the migrant that they would imagine. It's funny that most of the discrimination comes from that type of mindset about...
And here's the thing. It's not like racism. It's them just discovering more layers to it.
Yeah. Oh.
It's like when people travel to Mexico for the first time and they go to Mexico City and they see how international it is.
Yeah.
And you see all type of Mexicano, like freaking tall güero. We all have one family in our family that's like the güero with green eyes.
Yeah, like eyes. What the fuck is happening with that? Yeah, a bunch of the Irish brigade guys in the last American-Mexican war stayed.
That's
and
insane.
betrayed, So That's why.
I mean, look at Canelo, dude.
He's probably one of them. You know,
he's got some Irish in him
he
for
probably
sure.
has some Irish in him. So, comedy.
Yeah.
So we usually start these things from the beginning.
Oh,
you know?
we can go all the way back, man.
All the way back.
Yeah.
Like, where were you born? Like, what's your background?
Dude, so it's a pretty typical American story, but there's a lot of fluidity in it. So my parents are originally from Ciudad Juarez.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both of your parents are from Ciudad Juarez.
Ciudad Juarez, like Juarez, Juan Gabriel, Juarez. You know,
Yeah.
straight up.
Like Killing Fields Juarez also.
Oh yes. Oh, I know you're gonna go
No,
there.
no, I'm.
This is what I love about every guest you have on your podcast has like a gritty backstory. They're like, yeah, when I was my 3 friends were gunned down and I was held up in a safe house. And then I'm like the one guy, I'm like, hey, I do stand up.
No, it's great. I know that most comedy comes from a horrible place. So I know you have some dark probably. So Juarez.
Juarez, yeah. So my parents, they're from, I guess, what is it? Is it just after the boomer generation, right? They were born in the late 50s.
Yeah.
So they were in a time in Mexico and Juarez where like there wasn't a lot of that.
Yeah, they got to see the classic Simpsons border town.
Yes.
With the sombreros and saguaros, and it's fine. It's safe, kind of shady, but it's fine.
Literally, yeah. I mean, kids can play out till, sundown. They could, go to the markets, everything. Like, they describe a version of Juarez that, like, no one, I think, can even imagine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my parents would tell me, going from Juarez, my dad grew up as poor as you can get in Juarez. Like, he grew up in a barrio where it was literally, like, most families was like 6 people to a 400 square foot room, and people can't even imagine that. Like he took me and my brothers one time, obviously, every Latino father like, déjate enseño dónde empezamos, cabrón. Yeah, the origin story. And
6 kids?
Yeah, he has 5 siblings, so he was one of 6.
Yeah, my dad was one of 12.
Dude,
they didn't have TVs back then.
Or pull out.
I don't know what the fuck is going on. But people were fertile as shit back then.
And he grew up in the type of where it was like his dad also had like another family.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, secret family shit?
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
that's so Mexican.
That's
so Mexican.
And then at the funeral, you just meet all the relatives, all the other kids.
Yeah, I had a few of our guys that would pass away. And then that segment is just for the wife. Oh, cool. And you're like, that's not his wife. And then it was Jerry Springer at the funeral,
That's where the drama comes in, because then it's like, ¿con quién se va a quedar con la casa o la propiedad, right? It's always a property.
There's always a lawyer comes to see the papers and like figure out who was first. And that's usually who wins. Because do you think the Mexican government in Ensenada and Tijuana talk to each other?
Hell no.
Anyways.
Yeah, so he grew up in one of those situations, and early on his pops just was like, see, I got another family. So he was telling me stories where him and my tios were like his brothers. They would have to go and make money, because it was like one mom taking care of 6 kids. So she's like, I can only work so much, right? So she would do is literally do the classic like make food, snacks, little dulcecitos at the house. And then my dad and my uncles had to go out and sell them.
A basket and just on the street corner.
So they would literally do that. And then they discovered, they're like, hey, one day they realized, hey, we can make more money if we cross into the U.S. And instead of selling stuff, we could just plant ourselves outside of bars and start shoe shining. Because they're like, it's more of a skill.
And when you say like across the board, they
would just jump over.
Obviously.
No.
Back then there wasn't
they would get the paperwork.
Yeah. Back then it wasn't a wall, or there was just a fucking fence.
There was no cameras or anything. But the thing that he would tell me is like, if you got caught, you would get fucked up. Like back then,
like who would fuck you? The border patrol would beat the shit out of you.
So here's the thing. This is like pre-cell phone camera, pre-camera.
This is like the 60s.
60s.
Yeah, this is they're carrying around nightsticks, and you're gonna get some of that.
And dude, these guys are frustrated.
Yeah.
And back then it's like, now it's like, policing is it's very well
People see.
documented.
Yeah, people see. People watch.
Yes, everybody's got a camera. So it's like, look, that you kind of want that, right? You want people in power with guns to be checked by society. You want that. Back then,
There's nobody. It's just this kid who shoe shined illegally in the U.S. and
yes,
and get caught in the desert by these dudes with nightsticks. They're angry for their horrible job, just watching this.
they're pissed. And back then, they didn't make that much money. There wasn't like all the pensions and like all the shit that they got now. So like back then, they were like, hey man, if you get in trouble, they just move you to another destination
So
or another.
he got caught by them a few times.
So he told me one instance, right, where he was crossing back and forth. They used to cross. They used to sit outside of bars, shoe shine for a couple hours, earn dollars, come back. And back then, if you earn, $10, you're like, dude, that's food for a week.
Yeah.
So they used to go hustle. And then again, if they come back, they get caught. The Border Patrol agents used to not only take their shit.
Tax them, yeah.
Yeah, they would take all their money, empty out your pockets, any cash, so they lose everything. They would sometimes take their shoes from discouraging them because they're like, hey, you don't have shoes, you can't be crossing and walking back.
Yeah, fuck, that's world.
So then in one instance, he runs into a Border Patrol agent. And the Border Patrol agent has caught him twice before then. And he was like, and my dad, again, he's one of those Wedo Mexicans, he's got blue eyes.
Okay.
So he stands out.
Yeah.
They're like,
so
hey.
you remember him.
Yes. They're like, who's this güerito? And my dad's like, ¿Quién? And they're like, yeah, güerito, ojos azules. And then they're like old white Texan guys, good old boys. And they're like, oh, ojos azules. You know what I mean? How they talk to you?
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah. He's like, hey, I've been seeing your ass. I've caught your ass twice. If I see your ass again, I'm going to do something to you to where you won't be able to walk. Like that.
Mafia shit.
Mafia shit. Like he's getting tired of catching the same kids. And keep in mind, my dad's like 12, 13 years old. So, he's a 7th, 8th grader. So sure enough, he goes back. They go back. They let shit die down for a bit. They got to go earn money. They go get their shoe shine kits. They go back. They do it. They come back. All of a sudden, when they're crossing back, he just sees a truck pull up, like pull up right in front. And my dad was just like, immediately, he told me, he was just like, please don't let it be this guy. Like, let it be any other border agent. And then as soon as he rolls down the window, he's like, hey, ojos azules. And he was like,
dude. Fuck.
Yeah, I'm fucked. So he gets out of the car, tells everyone to empty out their pockets. They lose their money. And then he was like, ojos azules, like, I'm going to make an example out of you. This is all shit that he remembers, He's like, what? And then he's like, turn around. And he goes, what the hell is this guy going to do to me? Turns around and he says, I just remember just everything going black. Doesn't remember anything. He wakes up with my tios kind of like waking him up, taking care of him. Turns out the dude just fucking kicked him as hard as he could in the ass. Yep. And it was so hard, I think the pain just knocked him out.
Yeah, fucking went into
And
shock.
a grown man doing this. And he says, he was like, I couldn't walk for a week.
Fuck.
And this is back then, like when they can get away with that kind of shit.
Nobody's.
There's no checks and
There's
balances.
no checks and balances. It's the Wild West shit.
So that's how he grew up,
Yeah.
and going back and forth between El Paso and Juarez. That's kind of what it was. So it was like they were kind of fighting for survival. So growing up, that's kind of what I was imprinted on me.
Yeah, that epic survival story of your parents.
Of my parents.
That were almost murdered by Border Patrol agents when they were kids.
But the thing is, my dad has this is what I love about Mexicanos, is like, we joke about the darkest shit all the time.
I think the normalization of dark shit. It's like, so that was a normal for your dad.
Yeah.
That was a normal. That was every few months that shit happened probably, or
Pretty
a few
much.
weeks, right?
Getting beat up, jumped, having your money stolen.
I always tell people normal is a fluid concept to Mexicans, just like gender is in the U.S. It's just because Mexican normal, like Tijuana normal,
Yeah.
like I don't remember where I was. Somebody started shooting somewhere in California. Somebody started shooting. There was a shooting somewhere, and I basically orientated towards where the shots were, happening, and then just stood next to a concrete pillar kind of like waited out. And everybody else was running.
Yeah, they're ducking down. They're
Crazy.
finding
Shit
cover.
like that. Like somebody said, like that's like very tactical of you. It's like, no, it's Tijuana. You finish
like-
your taco, and then you jump over the bodies after they get done. Or maybe take a selfie with them.
You're like, as soon as you're like, the shooting will stop.
Yeah, these guys they have 30 rounds, and then you can move. The concept of a Mexican normal is just weird, and also Mexicans have a tendency to try and we laugh that shit off.
We laugh at everything.
Yeah,
man.
oh yeah, your dad used to beat. Yeah, he beat me unconscious every.
I'm telling you right now, with the taxi driver, he was like, "Where's your family from?" I was like, "From Juarez." They're like, "Oh, they've been kidnapping all the women over there." He's like, He's like, "What? Did they ever solve that?" I'm like, "Bro, that's some dark web." Shit, I'm like, I'm not even looking into it. He's like, but I'm sure if they were selling these women, he's like, I'm sure they must have been hot, right? I'm like, he's like trying to get at like, these must have been some fine Juarez women. Basically tell me, he's like, are there any hot women in Juarez left?
This is a classic Mexican conversation. Some dark shit,
Yeah. I'm like, this guy's trying to see if there's still hot women in Juarez. He's like, or have they all been kidnapped and murdered?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm just like, bro, this is only in Mexico can you have these conversations about literally a massacre.
It's hard to cancel people here. You could just run and change names or have a secret family, apparently. So secret families still happen with social media and everything.
Oh,
that shit still happens. Anyway.
You got to cover your tracks, man. That's why any dude I meet, he's like, I'm not on social media. I'm like, this dude's got like four side chicks.
Family,
Secret
or so maybe like some sort of Nazi that's hiding out still. I don't know, like a holdout. I guess I don't know. Your parents find their way into Texas.
They do. And this is where I tell you my dad's and my family's sense of humor. And this is where it lands on me and the way I grew up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my dad, he gets older. This is the way he's grown up. My mom's in the same way, but she's more of like the good girl, going to school and everything. She links up with my dad. Typical Mexican shit. Ends up getting pregnant at 17.
And your dad had probably some game,
Oh,
social engineering shit.
And he was the blue-eyed one in the neighborhood.
Blue-eyed fucking John Sebastian looking motherfucker.
And not only that, when my dad was coming up, what was big was Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta, all that stuff. He was on Welcome.
Yeah,
so my dad,
we're at the 70s now. So
he kind of looked like a Latino John Travolta.
Yeah.
So he had Begue, you know what I mean? Like the chicks.
So that's the thing, like in Mexico, like having colored eyes, as a Mexican, that shit's
it's
like
a cheat code.
It's like a superpower.
It's not fair.
Look at his eyes. What's better than you're like your cow shit colored eyes, looking at him, a little jealous. Like that's the way, like all the telenovela stars are usually some Mexican dude that has like deep blue eyes.
Blue eyes.
Probably went to fucking Russia and had some of those eye drops,
know.
Some shit like that. I was suspicious about fuckers like that. So your dad is, he has that game.
He had the game. He got my mom, and he was just like, dude, we're doing what Latinos do in this era, which is like, hey, you have a kid, let's have him in the U.S. because that's our entry point.
You don't want to say it. Come on, say the word.
Anchor, baby.
You want your anchor here. So
okay. So this is where the comedy is. So they have to plan, like, how do we get a woman who's 7 months pregnant at this
she was
point?
7 months pregnant.
Yeah, because they were waiting. They were like, let's wait till we know it's healthy here, and then we cross over and have it. So it's a plan.
That's a horrible plan. So she has to cross the border hiding her stomach. I mean, I guess.
Yes, but this is what they do. So at this point, my dad's kind of hustled his way. He got a job under the table working in El Paso. So he started earning dollars for a while. And what he would do is he would clean up a furniture factory. So they always had trucks, they had boxes, they had everything. And he would cross back and forth. So he kind of knew some of the border guys a little bit, because he would cross over with the owner, who was this older white man.
Yeah.
So, and he was just cleaning up. He was just being a helping hand, getting paid under the table. So he finally gets enough money. He was like, hey, we got a place over there now. We cross over, we stay, and we have the kid, and then we're good.
We'll figure it out.
So he comes back. He has the furniture truck. He's got the box. He's got everything. And my mom basically had to hide in a refrigerator box.
Sure. This sounds completely normal.
Yes.
So your mom's 7 months pregnant, hiding in a refrigerator box in the back of this furniture truck.
In the back of the furniture truck. So he gets her in. They cross the border. And here's the thing. My dad crosses over. He's got blue eyes. And at this point, he's taught himself English by listening to audio tapes.
That's beautiful. I taught myself by listening to horrible movies and shit like that.
Yes.
So he's probably learning how to speak it and emulate it.
Very much so. And at the time, you know, you're in Texas, so El Paso, this is the Tejano culture where like a lot of Mexicans love country music. So at the time, you had like Willie Nelson, you had Waylon Jennings, you had like those outlaw country dudes being played on the radio. So he would tape them, steal the songs, listen to them. So he started to learn English with like a cowboy accent a little bit. You know,
hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? You know, some of that
mamas
shit.
don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. So that was playing on the radio. So he knew all that. So anytime he would speak English, he would do it with like a Texas draw. And he would cross the border. Back then, they wouldn't check documents. You go, American.
I'm an American citizen.
Yeah, and they see blue eyes, so he would go right ahead. They believed it.
Shit.
And again, there's the blue-eyed superpower.
It's a fucking blue-eyed Mexicans, man. I hate all of you.
Oh, trust me, I hate him too. So, so he crosses the border, right? They cross into it, they get safe, and then not only do you cross the border, but you also got to cross the checkpoint. The checkpoint's a bitch.
Yeah.
So everyone is like, well, once you cross the border, you're good. You're like, yeah, why? He's like, why do most people just cross the border and stay there? If I was there, I would go all the way to Maine or go all the way to a place where they would never look for me. You're like, no, dude,
there's
checkpoint, bro.
Checkpoints.
The checkpoint is the tester.
Yeah.
So he manages to get past the checkpoint. So now he knows that he's in the clear, right? Gets out of it. He decides, and this is where the comedy part comes in, he's going to fuck with my mom. He's going to pull a prank.
Shit.
At this moment.
He's not a good man. Okay, so he's gonna pull this prank on
So he pulls over.
This lady that's been in a box.
For like 3 hours at this point.
Who's pregnant.
Who's pregnant? His wife, the mother of his child, unborn child.
Let me just do this practical joke on her.
Okay. So he gets out and then he starts doing a voice. So he's like doing his Texas voice. He's like, oh, officer, no, please, everything's fine. He's like, oh, what's in this box? You got something back? And he's like banging on the box and everything. And he's like, no, please don't. And he's like, there's something in this box. And he's doing his voice. So he's doing a voice, and then he like opens it really fast. He's like, I think there's a woman back here, and opens it. And it's my mom, and she's just like in tears crying. And my dad is just there smiling, laughing.
Oh, no. Shit. It's funny as shit, but it's also, man, that guy.
And I'm like, my dad tells me a story, and he tells the story when he's have a couple tequilas in, and he's laughing his ass off. And I'm just thinking this shit. I'm like, I'm like, she could have lost the baby.
Yeah.
All that stress.
This is fucking horrible.
But that's the kind of guy he was. He was just always looking, despite all the shit he went through, he was always trying to like, hey, how can I make something funny?
Yeah, this gleeful darkness in him.
Yes.
Yeah, can get it.
It was the darkness. And again, that's what Mexicans do. You know, how can we pull a prank? How can we get a laugh? How can we do something despite dealing with a life or death situation? Literally, it's life or death.
Let me figure out how to make this funny. That sounds about right. So was that a sibling of yours, or that
was my oldest brother?
Your oldest brother.
Yeah, my oldest brother.
So how many of you? How many are you?
I have 3 brothers.
That's a good number. That's a good number. I'm my family. So my dad was 12. He comes from 12 siblings, and then he had 3 kids, 3 sons.
There you go.
So it's like we're going smaller.
So you're one of 3.
I'm the accident. So I'm the youngest one. You know.
Well, one of 3.
One of 3.
Yeah. 4 boys, 3 boys. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was exactly kind of how we came up. So then from there, my parents, you know, once they got past that checkpoint, they're like, where do we plant our flag? They stayed in El Paso for a little bit, and then they moved to San Antonio. And my dad, to help himself out, he gave my oldest brother the same exact name as him. So he had a birth certificate, a U.S. birth certificate.
Junior.
And guess what he did? The baby was born, my oldest brother is exactly 20 years apart. My mom was 17, my dad was 19. By the time my brother was born, he was 20. So what he did is he took the birth certificate and he doctored it because they have the exact same name.
Yeah.
So he changed the date. Yes, the year of born. So now he had a legal U.S. real document, and he could travel anywhere in the United States with that. So he had that birth certificate with him. That was his pass.
Dude, fucking that guy's a man. He should train the CIA. That's some CIA shit.
So that was it. And that from there, they could travel everywhere. And then from there, my parents, they moved to San Antonio, which they felt like this is a good space. It was a small city at the time. We're talking about like early 80s, late 70s.
It's not that anymore.
No, it's not.
But
It's
yeah,
huge.
but like, so San Antonio, what's that like growing up there?
San Antonio's cool, man. There's a lot of Mexicano. But again, there's also a lot of like.
So growing up, you have a lot of Mexicanos, and you're born in the U.S.
I'm born in the U.S.
But you have people that are not born in the U.S. that show up. What's that interaction like when you're a kid?
What do you mean?
Like Mexican, like
straight up Mexicans.
straight up nopal nopales and the tortillas Mexicans showing up like, hey, tú qué puto? Was there? What was that like?
It's weird because I feel. I know I was born in the U.S., but I grew up in a very Mexican household. I mean,
was it just Spanish going on?
Only Spanish, yeah.
So what are you watching on TV? And are your parents watching the same shit as you are on TV, or are they trying to be Americanized, or is it just you?
No, they definitely did. I mean, they got into this is like the '80s, right? So
Reagan era '80s.
The Reagan era '80s. Which, that did help my family because my mom, they were able to get a pathway to citizenship with the amnesty law and everything that passed. So, yeah, that did help. That helped a lot of families.
Yeah.
So once they kind of got into that mode, yeah, they started to get very Americanized, trying to, keep up with the Joneses, once you're there. So my dad, he started a small business. He opened up 2 restaurants.
What type of restaurants?
What do you think, bro?
I mean, maybe Chinese,
Indian,
Korean.
Yeah, we had the best pecking duck in San Antonio.
So like, by curiosity with that, like, what type of Mexican? So when you say Mexican restaurant,
yeah,
I'm from Mexico and I've been to Texas. I don't know what the fuck those guys are making in those kitchens. It's something. I don't know what it is. So what was like?
Caldo de res.
Okay.
So straight up Mexican. Once we got in, we brought the whole family over.
Caldo de res, for people that don't know, is just this fucking giant beef stew with a bone in it.
Beef stew, bone and like
a piece of corn usually in there.
Corn, giant whole potatoes.
What you would imagine
whole potatoes.
What you would imagine like hobbits eating at that inn that they went to with that big soup. Yeah. That's exact. They were eating caldo de res.
It's literally like a medieval. And then not only that, you get like lemons and you just squeeze.
No reason to put lemon in there, but you have to. Yes.
And then you're wrapping a tortilla, dipping it.
Yeah, you're dunking it tortillas like you would dunk an Oreo into milk. So for the gringos watching this, listening to this.
Yeah, so it was real Mexican food, obviously.
Yeah. There are 2 restaurants.
So he did that, and then he sold the restaurants. So he had some money now. He got an offer. He sold them. So he started kind of building his way up, and then we decided to move into kind of the outskirts of San Antonio. So we grew up like in a ranch in a small town called Marion, Texas. Cool. So it's kind of between San Antonio and Austin.
Yeah, when you say a ranch, I mean like a
little rancho, my dad.
Horses around and shit.
Yeah, my dad, he was like obsessed with horses. So over there you could buy a horse.
I don't want to be racist, but did you guys keep chickens?
We had chickens, Dad. We had chickens.
Of course you did.
We had chickens. We had a gallo. Which you would name after, relatives. Es el gallo Rogelio.
Gallo Rogelio, yeah. Probably like a skinny relative you have that has one of those big Mexican stomachs and skinny legs.
Yeah, like, hey, ese gallo, like, they have the red girdle, right? The rooster, like, kind of looks like your tío Victor, so let's call him Victor.
Yeah. That's how you name them dogs, and my mom used to name dogs after, like, neighbor women that she didn't like,
Esa perra cabrona.
Yeah, she was like, hey, Brenda. And the fucking dog would come over. That neighbor would be just all pissed off, like fucking wanting.
Yeah, they knew it. They were like, there's some bad blood there.
So you moved into this rural area. Cool.
So this was the crazy part. We were the only, this was like pretty much an all white Anglo town.
You were only beans and the rice?
And the only Mexicans they knew were like the straight up like paisa, I mean, basically what my parents were 10 years prior.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, my dad comes in and, he's doing a little better. Like, he's kind of picking himself up. And immediately, like, one time, I asked if a friend could come over. And his dad and his parents wouldn't let him come over to my house.
So, you asked one of your little white friends?
One of my white friends.
What was his name? It's like
Tyler.
Tyler, of course. So you ask Tyler, who has
Tyler.
Tyler probably has the bluest eyes on the planet.
White kid.
freckly. He looks
like Dennis the Menace.
He looks like Little Debbie's little brother or something like that, you know? Something
and
like that.
This is 90s, so I'm like, hey, come over. We could play Nerf guns.
No.
Everything. And his parents would not let him. And he was like, oh, my parents won't let me come over, like, at all.
But
they're like, but you can come over here.
Did you kind of like know?
I just didn't know why.
Okay.
So then I remember there were kids, they were having a birthday party. And then they invited other kids, and then they didn't invite me. And after a while, like, I told my mom, and she ran into one of the parents, and they were like, well, we just, we don't, what kind of, they started asking questions about, like, what my dad does. And they're like, oh, at this point, he was, like, kind of buying and selling businesses.
Yeah.
Which was, like, he kind of found his footing, in America, which is good. That's what you want. But once my parents were kind of explaining that to those people in the small town, that just didn't make sense. Like, you were either a carpenter, a fireman, like basically like a blue collar job.
Yeah.
So when they hear this and they're like, why are these Mexicans? By the way, too, like, why are these Mexicans moving into this part, a small town outside of San Antonio versus living in the city?
Yeah.
So then it came out that they thought my dad was a narco.
Yeah. That's makes sense.
That's exactly what they thought.
He would make sense. This blue-eyed fucking Mexican in this fucking his house that is like, that guy, those, what? Yeah. I could make that assumption, I guess.
So basically, yeah.
I would have used that shit out of that, though. I would have parked wherever the fuck I wanted, Just fucking fingered everybody. Fuck, what are you going to do? ¿Qué vas a hacer? Fucking do some of that.
Yeah.
It's probably not.
And by this time, the cops would definitely, they had it out. So at this point, my older brother was already in high school, the one that was the one in the box.
Yeah.
And he's in high school, and he's getting shit. Like, anytime he goes out with his friends,
He gets stopped.
yeah, he would get stopped, everything. And they just knew us. We were a marked family in town.
They would get harassed.
So when you talk about, like, being fish out of water, it's like, look, the whole goal of the U.S. is to come here and do well.
Yeah.
But, like, when you're a Mexicano and you're doing well, that's
You're
the
like,
first
why?
thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know who else points that finger? Is other Mexicanos.
Oh,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Ah, es el narco, el cabrón. You're
Like
why?
you found some money buried in a wall somewhere is what I would get, It's like I fucking crossed the border with 10 grand, and I somehow made a business out of it, and I'm still to this day they're like, you fucking probably found $1 million in a wall somewhere. Like, no, found nothing, no shit. Yeah, the suspicion of it, I guess. So.
But you know what? I talked to a friend of mine who's a comic. His name is David Lucas, which he's with the whole Kill Tony crew. But he told me that happens too with the black community. They're like, if you get out and you make a lot of money, people are like, oh, he's dealing.
Yeah,
he's
or
dealing.
Snitching. Yeah, I get it.
So I think there's a little bit of that minority envy. Like, we kind of envy each other a little bit, and we kind of try to write things off.
When you realize this, what does it do to you? I mean, imagine you're growing up self-identifying as a Mexican American or American.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden
they think my whole family is a narco family.
Your whole family's basically El Chapo Guzman's family out there.
The one thing my dad did is he knew, like, he talked to basically people that were pretty affluent in the town. So this is, I could write a whole series about this, which now that I'm saying it out loud, actually I think it's interesting. So he knew that there was a local bank, and the main banker there, like, was basically kind of the mouthpiece for the town.
Yeah.
Because he knows who's doing business, what's doing what. So my dad goes to the banker and he goes, hey, look, I want to get a $50,000 loan, and I could put up my house for equity. And the reason he did that, he's like, I want to do it because I want to purchase this business, and I want to use the bank's money, and I'll pay it back. The reason he did that is because they go through all of your finances.
Yeah, to legitimize himself in front of the biggest eyes he could.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So he goes there, goes through the whole loan application, shows his tax, shows how he's been getting his money and everything. After that, within 2 weeks, my parents would pick me up from school. Oh, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Torresdey, and blah, blah. Now everyone's starting to be nice because he knew word would get out if I did that.
I would have still leaned into the whole cartel thing myself. Just come out there with a gold gun. Oh, hi, what's going on?
Yeah, Ed, you would have come out with your cowboy hat, a brand new F-150.
I mean, if I was your dad, I would have
dark tinted windows,
the Cobra head boots. You know those things? Just step out of the car with that fucking Cobra head on your boot.
No, and then this is the one thing on the back of your F-150 is Calderon, right?
Yeah.
The last name on the back glass.
You have to have your name on the back.
Otherwise, they don't know it's yours, even though you're driving it.
A sticker of a parrot, a goat, and a rooster.
The Virgin Mary.
You have
photo
to have those three animals because like the rooster is cocaine. No, wait, no, the rooster. What's the guy? No, the rooster is weed. The parrot is cocaine, and the goat is heroin.
Is that right,
dude?
I don't know this. This is
educating the Mexican American people, but that's the code they have. I make my money off. El perico, el gallo, la chiva.
Oh, yes, that makes sense now.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. No, so your dad took the better route. He's not a horrible Mexican like I am. He figured out how to basically.
Well, I wouldn't say that either.
Well, he figured it out at least to make it bearable for you guys there, I guess.
Yeah.
But what does that experience do to you as growing up? Like, did you try harder to fit in?
It's the first time I realized that people are always gonna try to categorize you.
Yeah.
And when you're a different culture, that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I realized I was like, oh, like you got to understand. It's like, yeah, you're gonna be different in certain situations. And the thing is like take the higher road. Unfortunately, we have to take the higher road.
Yeah, there's no option.
When you're a minority, if you don't take the higher road, it just makes shit worse for you.
Roll,
by the way,
roll with it or die.
Exactly. And when you're white, you could take the low road, and you're like, oh, I'll be fine. Come out the other side.
Sometimes.
I mean, yeah. If they're in control of the town, here's the thing: it's whoever's in control of the situation you're in.
Yeah.
So
you have this. And that's like some roadhouse. I imagine
this is also
town.
The immigrant mentality too, where it's like every time you're out, you got to be dressed up as best as possible.
Yeah, you have to impress.
Don't try to create chaos. This is why when you see a lot of Mexicans, they're always quiet. They're not trying to be loud because they're like, it attracts attention. No, yo estoy bien aquí. They're like, sir, can I help you? Like, no, yo estoy bien. I'll find it. And the guy's just wandering the store for an hour.
Yeah.
Dude, I happened to me recently. I was in New York visiting a friend of mine. This dude just waiting outside the ER, literally with like a freaking, it looked like he fell from a construction site or something.
Yeah.
Like, dude was bad. He had bandages, there's blood, and he's quiet, waiting for someone from ER to come up to him. And I realized he was just there. I'm like, ¿Qué pasó, amigo? And just in Spanish, he's like, and his eyes lit up. He's like, no, les dije que me estoy dañado, pero no tengo papel. And so I just went up and I just straight up and helped out the dude.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's how our people, unfortunately. It's like,
you get quiet. You don't ask for shit.
You don't
ask for shit. There's no way. Yeah.
Stay out of the way.
Stay out of the way. Keep a low profile. Hide.
Yeah.
Even when you get past the point where there's paperwork or that you're legal or that you have everything, done, you're still, I could lose it though.
Yeah.
I could lose it though. I don't want to risk. I don't want to do this,
This is why, we talk about being religious. It's like, ay, se lo mande Dios, you know what I mean? Like, if God allows it, that's literally a common Mexican phrase. So because, again, there's that living in fear. So, my parents, they kind of instilled like, hey, when you're out, dress as best as possible, speak English as best as possible. It was all about just trying to fit in and assimilate, which I think that's kind of a good thing too.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a good thing because every other generation that has succeeded has had to assimilate. I think we've all had to go through those growing pains.
It's funny, like, so my daughter's American.
Yes.
And I'm the bean that crossed the border and did it legally.
Sell out.
It's fine. I get it. It's hard. But like seeing, culturally, like it's not that I Americanized myself. I grew up on the border, so I'm already Americanized by growing up on the border.
Yeah.
So like I don't dress like a Mexican is what I get sometimes. Like, I wouldn't have seen you dress like this. Like, what do you want me to dress like? The pearly shirt, I guess, or like
I mean, a little bit.
I try
Was your cross?
every now and
Your
then.
cross on the neck?
I have a giant reaper, but
Yeah.
every now and then, like I get that. But also, I find it fascinating when like the second or third generation Mexican Americans, like you'll go to their house and they're dressed like Frida Kahlo, you know?
Yeah,
And
we,
you're like-
we try to turn into it sometimes.
And you're like,
yeah,
they're
that
like,
generation.
it's like, what do you think? She was a horrible artist.
Oh, you're gonna hurt some
And you're-
feelings, man. I know.
That if people don't think that Frida Kahlo was a horrible artist, I'll make a wager that I can find at least 3 other amazing female Mexican artists from the same
Oh, there's
time
a lot of great. Yeah.
that weren't married to a famous muralist. You know, that's why she got famous. But anyways, it's funny how we get far from it and then we have to get it back,
Yeah.
and we become. Look like Coco exploded over us, like a Pixar movie exploded over us.
I think it's because I think the older you get, and I think the further the generations get, is that they almost kind of want to go back to their roots.
Yeah.
And then you realize you're like now, especially now, and I also think in this generation now, like you can stay true to your roots, and everyone's kind of on board.
And that's usually when they'll meet the Mexican wall. Because Mexicanos tenemos una pared. We have a wall.
Yeah.
And the wall is, and I'm already over it, right? So I migrated, so I'm not really Mexican anymore.
Do you feel that? Do you feel like you have to compensate it a little bit?
Mexicans will consider that of me. Like I sell out. You went there, you left.
I had to.
Right?
Yeah.
But on the other end of it, I'm not Mexican enough to some second or third generation Americans. Like, hey, you don't speak with an accent. What's your accent? Right? You want me to have the? I can turn it on if you want.
Okay, amigo, aquí estamos.
I can speak
Let's
like
do it.
this, and I can, be like a LA TV reporter. Like, we're going now to San Isidro Boulevard. Like go into that type of shit. But in my mind, I'm like, hey, I'm new here. I need to kind of figure out how to blend it.
Yeah.
So I work on my. But that apparently isn't good enough. It's a whole.
There is a
fucking
whole,
struggle.
and this is the one thing where our country, our home country, right, where our family's from, you're from Mexico, is right on the border with the United States. So our cultures are blended through.
Completely.
I don't think there's no other immigrant that has to deal with this, right? And it's like that classic like Selena speech from the movie with Ed or Jane Loma, like, it's exhausting, because it kind of is. It's like when you go to Mexico to be with your family, you're whole hardcore Mexicano, and then you come back and you're crossing the checkpoint through customs, right? And you're like, yes, sir, American. I was there visiting my family. We had a posada, right? You're like trying to
We had a piñata that was very beautiful.
Yeah.
The dogs were on the roofs, but
yeah, you're saying you're like the food a little bit too spicy though. Yeah,
you have to
do
shift it. You alter it.
As
Yeah.
Black people would say, you have to do your job interview voice.
And another thing we do every now and then, like, is your Spanish speaker. We go into language stealth modes.
Yeah.
When you're like, if you're Mexican American and you're in Mexico, and they haven't found out yet, you just get quiet, and all of a sudden you have to say something, and like, ocho, you get it.
Oh, 100%.
And when you're over there, some fuckers are just talking mad shit about you in Spanish or something, or English,
I mean, they see us like we get the. By the way, I also used to think because I'm like, we're both taller, right? So the height can kind of help.
Yeah.
I'm 6 feet, so it's like a lot of times they get the assumption of what you look like, and then they kind of size you up based on like, okay, está alto, tiene pelo largo.
This is the only
Hey
way.
man, you were born in America.
Yeah, the only way you can tell is by that vaccination scar. That's how I tell. Where are you from? I'm Mexican. Let me see your vaccination scar. And if you don't have it, you're like, no, you're not. This is how you have to have one of those holes in your arm, because we still poison ourselves and our children with that shit.
Oh, dude, you
the
have
80s.
to. You have to. But there's that cross-culturalness where it's like, you're right. You have to play both sides of the field. It's always part of you. So I think that also allows, too, for you to notice a lot of nuance within other cultures as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Like, it's so funny. I saw a video, and like, unless you live within the communities, you can see through a lot of, especially what the media does with bullshit. This is why I started doing the Latinx shit.
Yeah.
Because it was everybody but real Latinos saying what we want to be labeled as.
Yeah.
And what that did was the first time that Latinos, like, they realized, they're like, oh, these people don't want their culture changed.
Yeah.
These people don't want us to go in and kind of wokeify what their culture is. Like, we're so proud of it. And I hate it when they're like, well, it's being more inclusive. You're like, no. You don't realize, you're like, you guys take this away from us. You're taking away our identities.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I think a lot of Latinos realized, they're like, wait, what's this Latinx shit?
Yeah.
It's like the first time, because we're so worried about being in America and we're so worried about, succeeding. Most Mexicans in the United, they don't think about politics as much as other groups do.
I mean, I'm Mexican. I heard the whole Latinx thing for the first time, and I was like,
Yes.
you mean, are we divorced from Latino culture? Or are we like X-Men now?
It was the smelling salt to realize, they're like, oh, they're coming for us.
Yeah, like
and they're trying to change our culture to use us as political pawns.
Yeah.
And that's all the first thing I was like, and I use comedy to identify the nuance, because I think that's the best way to do it. So once we started doing the jokes about that, that's when we started realizing that as far as like Latinos go, they go, oh shit, we're paying attention now.
Yeah.
Like, you guys aren't gonna get away with this. And that's when you started seeing a lot of the blowback with it. Because again, 3 or 4 generations deep, dressing like Frida Kahlo, listening to Ramon Ayala tapes, like, we're not letting the culture go. Because we're right on the border.
Yeah.
Like, you guys can't just come in, throw a bucket of water and rinse it off the Latinoism.
Just put an X in there.
So again, it's the culture. It stays with us. And that, when you grow up in it, there's no shaking it.
Yeah.
It's always with you.